It's the big interview here on RX Radio Breakfast, and today I'm interviewing Chantel Cooper, who is the CEO of the Children's Hospital Trust, an organisation that supports the Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital and other paediatric wards in the Western Cape. We're going to be discussing the birthday of Red Cross, which takes place in June, and the questions have all been put together by RX Radio reporters. And just to remind everybody, we do conduct this interview over the internet, so the quality might not be as good as usual, and we apologize for the audio issues that arise from being connected over the internet. It's not 100%, it's not perfect, it's not like we were in the studio, but at least you'll be able to hear the conversation. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is the big interview. Chantel, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me.
It's fantastic to join you today.
Now, you're not a stranger to RX Radio. We've interviewed you before. You did a pre-recorded interview with Yusra and Books and Breakfast with Yusra, but it's your first time live. So welcome to the show, and how have you been?
Thank you, and really good. If I look outside, the weather's really awesome. So I'd rather be outside than inside, but we do what we do because we love what we do.
And now for us at RX Radio, we know very well what the Trust does, because the Trust helps to fund RX Radio. But for those who don't know, especially for the kids in the hospital, what is it that the Trust does?
So the trust was actually started in 1994 by Professor David Beatty, and he used to be one of the key doctors in the hospital. So at the time, the hospital was struggling to find the right equipment to do what they needed to do and to take proper care of children. And he felt that by starting a non-profit organization like the Trust, we could work in partnership with the hospital, which is a government entity. And our role is essentially to raise funds to buy equipment that all the doctors and nurses need to provide the care for all their patients. We expand their buildings. So ICU would be our most recent project. So anybody who's been in the ICU would know the difference between what it was and what it is now. And really, we also raise funds for doctors who come from around Africa to do training in subspecial skills. And so to give them the opportunity to go back to their countries and create a similar kind of services that are available at Red Cross. So essentially, in a nutshell, the Trust is really a partner to the hospital, and we facilitate partnerships between the community and ourselves and the hospital.
And now the Trust is raising money for the emergency units at Red Cross and the COVID-19 needs of the hospital. Could you tell us a little bit more about those?
I think the emergency center is one of the busiest units in the hospital and is the main entry point. And even now during COVID, we know the importance of the emergency center as the main entry point into the hospital. And so one of the biggest challenges of the emergency center has always been that there hasn't been enough space. So we're not making the center bigger to assist more children, because the numbers are really, really big. The center sees around 45,000 children a year. But we creating a space that's going to be more specialist. So if a child who's survived a burns, incident, they're able to come in and there's a proper burns room, they're stabilized downstairs and moved up into theatres or ICU. We have one of the biggest missing elements in the emergency centre is there's no lift within the emergency centre that takes a critically ill or injured child right from emergency centre up to theatre or ICU. We're going to put a lift in. So there's various changes that affect the flow of the emergency centre so that they can provide really good care for children that come in. And I think because we're a children's hospital, it's not only about the children, it's about the families. And so we're really conscious of making sure that we create a space, because when a parent comes in and their child is injured or they're sick, they're very worried and they're often traumatized. So we also want to create a comfortable space for their families while they wait to hear what the outcome of the care for their children will be. So COVID has been really interesting. We all know that COVID just came out of nowhere. And I think we're really lucky in that we have leadership in the hospital who planned ahead. And so we're now aware that I was told this week we're at the bottom of the mountain of the peak of COVID. And we know in Cape Town, we felt it really, really hard. So the role of the trust around COVID, even though it's not a project that we're particularly raising funds for, the role of the trust is to support the hospital to make sure they have what they need. And within COVID, the hospital has worked really hard to make sure that the staff are protected from the virus, that the families feel safe, that the children feel safe while they are in hospital, because it's a really, really scary virus that we're facing at the moment, and it's everywhere. So we've managed to get some funding to help the hospital buy the PPE equipment, is what we call it. So all the special, so the nurses need special masks. So it's not like our mask, it's a special surgical mask. The scrubs that they're wearing, the goggles that they're wearing, the gloves that they're wearing, the shoe covers that they're wearing. It's all just to protect everybody that's involved in the hospital. So crossing fingers and toes, we've just put in an application for a really large sum of money that will help bring in more funding for the hospital to get what they need to continue what they're doing really well in terms of managing the virus within the hospital.
And then we're celebrating the hospital's birthday this month, in the month of June. So why is the birthday of the hospital so special?
I can speak as an adult. Birthdays are really special because it gives you time to think about what you've done in your life, and you think and you go back and you think, okay, what have I done and where do I want to go move forward in the next couple of years? So looking at the history of the hospital, is the hospital was started by a group of people who had been involved in World War II, in Italy in particular, and they promised themselves that when they got back home, because they were prisoners of war, that they would create a living memorial in memory of all those who had died in World War II. And so the birthday and the hospital gives us time to feel grateful for those who had survived World War II, but also grateful for those who'd given their lives in a war where they fought for a better life for all children. And so the hospital is a symbol of a space where we want to create better lives for children. So children who come in who are sick and who are injured are able to get better and go back and continue their lives, grow up and live their dreams and become who they want to, and change the world into a space they want to see. So I think the birthday is more than just a day where we say happy birthday and celebrate. It also gives us the opportunity to thank those who created the hospital and those who sacrificed their lives in World War II.
Wow, yeah, definitely a very, very special time, and it's great that it's just the whole month of celebration of June to be able to get that all in and focus on that. So what would you like to say to the healthcare workers at Red Cross and everyone else who's been and is fighting on the front line?
To be a health worker and anybody working on the front line, we call it's, we were saying this morning, it feels like a battlefield. And it's quite interesting that the hospital was created by people who are on a different kind of battlefield. So the link between why we were started and what we're facing now is very interesting. And I think, in my experience with the staff in the hospital and everybody who's got to know the nurses and doctors, they are absolutely incredible individuals who put their patients first, they put their families first, and themselves second. And so they are some of the most inspiring people I have met and know. And they are the reason that we do what we do. We want to support them because of who they are and what they do. And so we just want to say thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for caring. Thank you for, putting children first, for putting their families first, and just thank you for all that you do for the hospital.
Well, Chantel, thank you so much. I think that's a great note to end off on with some inspiration there. Thank you so much for joining me this morning on the show.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to you and to all the RX reporters. I've met so many of you, and you guys are just as much an inspiration. And thank you for spreading the word on COVID and for giving the hospital children, the staff, a voice. We're also very grateful to you, and well done. You guys are absolutely incredible.
Oh, thank you so much, and thanks so much for joining me. Bye-bye.
Alex.
Bye.